Now that we have done this, let's make sure that we are able to create our first Discord clone server. Yeah, we've made this beautiful model, and now let's make sure that we actually can create a server. For this, we need to go back to our backend and work on our server module. Okay, but first of all, you see this here, and this looks really bad, and we can simply fix it because I made a mistake and I made something that I should not have done. So let's go to our index.css here. We actually don't need this for now. Yeah, just let's get rid of it. And now it's centered perfectly. Yeah, okay. All right. Yeah, now let's go to the backend and let's start coding out our server module. And now here on our backend, let's go to our server service. Here you know the deal. We need a constructor to perform dependency injection. We need to make use of our Prisma service. Yeah, let's import it so we can use it in our class here. And now let's create our first method, async create server, which expects an argument of type create server DTO, which we have to create. And also it expects an image URL of type string. Now let's create this create server DTO. So here in server, let's create a file named dto.ts. In there, let's make use of our input type, yeah, coming from NestJS GraphQL. And then let's export a class named createServerDTO. And first of all, we make use of a string again from class validator, and we use the field decorator like so. We have a name of type string. Then we have a string and field again. And here we have the profile ID. And this is the reason why we have previously coded out the profile module, so we are able to have a profile ID, yeah? And we need the profile ID to create a server. Okay. Nice. So that's it for our create server DTO. We will create a few other DTOs for updating a server and so on. But we should be fine for now. Let's close it. Let's go to our server service again. Let's import this DTO. And now, first of all, let's say const profile is equal to await this Prisma profile, find unique, parentheses, curly brackets, where ID is equal to input.profileID, like this. And sorry, here we get an error because profile ID is a string here. So let's go back to our create server DTO and let's make this a type of number. And now the error is gone. Alright, now for the case that we do not have a profile, we throw new bad request exception, profile not found, for example. And then for the case that we have a profile, let's say return this Prisma server create parentheses, curly brackets, data, and then we simply spread in the input like this. But we need to provide further fields. Yeah. So we need to provide the image URL, because here the input, again, it contains just these two. But we also need an image URL, which is this thing here, and we need an invite code. Yeah, invite code. And where does this come from? Here we simply use UUIDv4 to create a unique ID, so to speak. And we have to import this thing. So let's say import v4 as UUID v4 from UUID. And let's make sure that we write import properly. Okay. Now a few more things here in this data object. We want to create channels on the server by default. So each server that we create should have one default channel. But then the user can create further channels on the server. But once the server is created, it shall have one channel with the name of general, like so. And also a profile ID of profile.id. And sorry, I made a little mistake. Here, after this curly bracket, we need create colon and then an array like this. And let's make sure we close this array here. Alright, beautiful. Now let's keep going. Also, the channel should have members, and it should have one member initially. And this one member needs a profile ID of profile.id and a role of member role, which we can import, which is our enum member role from member types admin. So it will have one member, which is the admin, because this user or this profile has created the server, so it's the admin by default, so to speak. And now we see we have an error here, and it is because this role does not exist on a member. So here I made a big mistake. So let's go back to our schema.prisma file. Let's go to our model member. Here, let's say underneath ID, for example, role, which is of type member role. And by default, it's guest, like so. Alright, now let's open up our console. And here we need to run two commands. We need to run npx prisma generate, and we need to run npx prisma db push to update our database. And let's close this terminal. And now this error is gone. Beautiful. Now once a server has been created, let's load a relation. So let's say include members. We want members to be populated like so. And what did I do here? Okay, we don't need these parentheses. And okay, we don't need these curly brackets here. Beautiful, nice. Let's also create another method. Async get server, which expects an ID of type number and an email of type string. And then we say const profile is equal to await this Prisma profile, find unique, parentheses, curly brackets, where email, like this. Then again, if we don't have a profile, then let's, we can also return a new Apollo error, for example. It doesn't really matter, profile not found, like this. Let's import the Apollo error from Apollo Server Express. And we can use bad request exception or Apollo error, it doesn't really matter, So I just want to show you, we can use different things here. And now let's keep going. So for the case that we have a profile, then we say const member is equal to await this Prisma member, find first, then let's say where, open up curly brackets, and let's say end, and then open up square brackets, and in here let's say profile ID colon profile.id comma and server ID server.id, like this, yeah. And then for the case that we have a profile, let's say const server, await this Prisma server find unique, where, curly brackets, ID, comma, members, then curly brackets, sum, profile ID, colon, profile.id, like this, yeah? Alright, let's make sure to close it correctly. And then, let's say if now server, return new Apollo error, server not found, for example, yeah? And last but not least, we can return our server like this. Alright, so what are we doing here? We try to find a server by the ID, but then one more thing, we want to make sure that the member who is looking for this server is part of this members relation, so to speak, yeah? This is important. We just want to make sure that the user who is looking for the server is part of the server, so to speak, yeah? That's all what we are doing here. That's why we are using sum, because members can be multiply, yeah? Not just one member. And for now, we are fine here. We need create server and get server. No, actually, we need get servers as well. Yeah, get servers is important. So let's create another async method, get servers, and maybe let's name it a bit more descriptive. Get servers by profile ID of member. So we only want to get the servers where the user is part of as member, so to speak, yeah? So here we say we need the email of type string, and then we say return this Prisma server find many, where, curly brackets, members, sum, and then profile, and then we put in the email, and we close it like this. Oh my god, so many brackets here. And we do not want to include anything here. So let me see, where do I have to close? Here I have to close, right? Yeah. Okay, and actually, I mean we should name this by profile email, yeah? Because we are using the email here, this would be better. Okay, and now we are done with this. So, for now let's close this. And I close the others as well, so we don't get confused with all the files. Let's go to the profile resolver. No, actually, sorry, we need to go to the server resolver. And we can get rid of this very first query here. Let's write another query. Query. And this query returns an array of server from our, where's our server here? Yeah, from server types, like this. And then, let's say async, get servers, actually, you know what, because I'm a bit lazy, let's simply name it get servers here. And in here, let's make use of the args decorator like this. Let's import it. And here we expect the profile ID of type number. And we expect the context. Also from NestJS GraphQL. Let's say CTX. This is what we name it. And then we say it has a request of type request from express. Request from express. And now let's do the following. If no CTX request profile.email, then we return new Apollo error. Yeah, profile not found. Let's import Apollo error from Apollo Server Express. And you might be wondering, what is this context here and why do we have a profile with an email? This is because we've created an OSCard here. Yeah? And here you see we put the profile object on the request and hydrate it with the payload. Yeah? This is why we can do it. But currently this would not work here because here on our query we must protect it by using use guards. And we need to pass in our GraphQL OSCard. And now we still have an error here because it complains that there's no profile property on the request. And there's an easy fix for that. In our source, let's create a new file, types.d.ts. And here we say declare namespace express and then export interface request profile, which can be optional, which is an object and which has an email of type string like this. And now the error is gone here. Beautiful. Now below this return statement, let's say return this server service. Oh my god, I forgot it again. So we need to make use of our constructor here for dependency injection. And in these parentheses, let's say private read-only server service, and let's import it. And now we can say this server service gets servers by profile email of member, and we can pass in our email, which is this thing here. Now let's create another, and now let's create a mutation, NestJS GraphQL, which returns a server type, which we already have imported. And let's say async create server. As args, we have an argument named input, and this input is of type create server DTO. Yeah. And create server DTO has just a profile ID and a name. And then also we have another argument with the name of file, and this file has a type of an arrow function which returns GraphQL upload, yeah? Like this. And it can be nullable. And then we can say the file is GraphQL upload, like this. Now let's make sure that we import this properly. We need to say import star as GraphQL upload from GraphQL upload, GraphQL upload.js. Yeah, make sure you use uppercase Q and L. So let's open up the function body And in here, let's say const image URL, which is equal to await this dot store image and get URL, and we pass in the file. And this is a function that we have to create, or a method I should say. So maybe let's directly create it. Private async store image and get URL. It expects a file of type GraphQL upload. And we can make it private because we only use it here in this class. Now let's say const curly brackets create read stream and also file name is equal, file name must be within the brackets as well, is equal to await file. Then below, let's create a unique file name. Let's use template string. Let's make use of a template string here. And now let's say $, curly brackets, UUID v4. And then let's put, and then for example, let's say bottom dash, and then let's say file name, maybe, yeah? File name, like this. Let's import UUID. Yeah, so import v4 as UUID v4 from UUID. Now let's create the image path. This is for our file system. So let's make use of join, which we have to import from path. And then we can say the following: process.cvd, yeah, our current working directory. And then we say comma, public, and in public we want to have another folder named images. Images, like this. Comma, and then our unique file name, which looks like this. We make use of our URL of our backend, but actually let's improve this. So let's say $ curly brackets process.env, and then we say app URL dot app URL, and let's go to our .env file, and let's say app URL, which is equal to HTTP localhost 3000. Alright. And here we simply say images and then the unique file name, because remember in our main.ts, in our app module, we are making use of this serve static module here, yeah? So we can simply serve them from images. We don't need to put public here. But for storing the files, we need to provide this public here. Okay. Next, let's create a read stream by calling create read stream like this. And then let's say read stream .pipe, and then we say create write stream, and we pass in the image path. And this actually stores our image in the corresponding folder. Alright. And now we can say return image URL. And this image URL is needed to display the image on the front end. Okay. Now let's go back to our create server method. And here let's make sure that we say let image URL. Let's make it like this. Let's get rid of this cons. And let's say only for the case that we have a file, then we want to use this method here, yeah? Otherwise it does not make any sense to use it. And after that we can say this server service create server, and we can put in the input and the image URL, and we are fine. Okay. Also, yeah, maybe you know what? We have this use guards here. Let's grab it and put it above the resolver. So all methods inside will be protected. And now let's go to the front end and make sure that we are able to create servers and display them in our sidebar. So let's keep going. Now let's go to our mutations. Let's create a new folder, server. And in here let's create a file named create server.ts. Let's import GQL from Apollo client. Let's say export const create server is equal to GQL, and then let's say mutation create server. Then we have a variable named input, which is of type create server DTO, and here exclamation mark to say it must be of this type. And then also we have a file which is of type upload, yeah. And now let's use create server here. As input we pass in our actual input, the values, and then also for file we pass in our actual file like this. Let's open up curly brackets, and we want to return the ID, name, and the members of the server. And for each member we simply return the ID, for example. And let's also return the image URL of the server like this. Can also grab this and put this above members, maybe like this. And let's make sure we close everything properly. And I think here's something wrong, huh? What's wrong here? And oops, here a dollar sign is missing like this. And now we are fine here. And now actually you see we get an error here. It cannot get the data from our backend to generate the types for us. So this crashed here because you see this error connect. And this is because our backend has crashed, yeah. And I can show it to you. So here in our backend, let's go to the terminal. You see it crashed. So we must go to our server module. And in here we must take care of the providers here. Let's put the Prisma service in here. And also we need to put in the JWT service, because we are making use of our auth guard, which is dependent on this service. Okay, let's see if this has fixed it. Nice. Now we can go back to our front end. And now I simply save this file again. And let's see what's happening here. Create, okay, here we have an error, creates server DTO does not exist because I missed an E. Let's try it again. And now it succeeded, yeah? All right, nice. We've created our create server mutation. Now we can go back to our create server model. All right, and in here in our create server model, let's say const square brackets, create server. And maybe let's also say loading, which we can get from here using curly brackets. And then we use our mutation from Apollo client. We pass in create server, create underscore server, create server like this, comma, and actually we don't need any options here, but we can type it, create server mutation, and create server mutation variables like this. And now let's create a function named onSubmit, which is equal to an arrow function. And here we say for the case that form.validate did not return true, meaning there was an error, then we simply return and do nothing. Otherwise, we run our create server mutation and we pass in the variables. Here we need to name it input because this is what we expect. And then we can provide the name coming from form values name. And then also we need to provide the profile ID. Yeah. Coming from profile ID, do we have this here? We don't have this here, but we can easily get it. So let's say const profile ID, use profile store, and then state profile.id like this, yeah? And let's make sure we close this properly. And why do we get an error here? Of course, this must be profile ID, yeah? And you know what? Let's close this function properly. Let's grab it and let's put it below this use form hook. Otherwise, we get a problem. And now, this is what needs to be in our input. Now we also need to provide the file, yeah? Like this. Because remember, our create server mutation expects an input, yeah, of the shape of create server DTO and then also the file. So it needs to be like this. Then let's provide an onCompleted callback. For the case it succeeded, we want to set the image preview to null. We want to set the file to null. And we want to close the modal. And we also want to reset the form like this, yeah? And then also, after this onCompleted callback, let's provide refetch queries. And here we say get servers, yeah? Because once a new server has been created, we want to update our server list in the sidebar, yeah? To show the newest server. And this is why we refetch all the servers once we created a new one. And now let's close it properly. And yeah, actually we don't need this data object here. Now let's go to our form here. And here we have this onSubmit, and here actually we need to run a function. So let's run onSubmit and let's execute it like this, yeah? So provide parentheses. And now let's go to our button, create server. And here let's say it's disabled for the case that we have errors or that it's loading like this. And maybe let's go up again to our onSubmit function. No, actually we are fine. Okay, so now I would say let's try it out. Let's upload an image. There it is. Let's provide a server name. Let's click Create Server. And you see something has happened, but let's try it again. Alright, interesting. Alright, this does not look really nice. What's going on here? And maybe the problem is that we need a folder here, yeah? We need public, and then we need an image folder. Images, like this. And now let's try it again. It didn't work, huh? Yeah, maybe let's restart. Now let's try it out again. And now you see it has worked, yeah? Alright, nice. Let's look in our database. Let's go to server. Here we have our server and we have an image URL. Beautiful. And here by default we have one member in it. And this member, yeah, has a profile here and so on. Okay, and it should have one channel, which is of type text and has a name of general. Okay, good. Okay, and you know what? Actually, what I don't like is that we need to create this public folder manually. So let's delete it again. And what I want to do is, I want to refactor this function a bit. So let's do the following. Let's say if not exists sync from fs, and here we use current working directory public images. So if this does not exist, what we want to do then is make dir from fs, and here we can use make dir sync, and we should be able to use our image path here, like so, and recursive true. So we create the public folder as well as the subfolders in it, yeah? Alright, now let's try it out again here on our front end. And here you see I have looked it up because here I found the solution. So ChatGPT is beautiful for this. Anyway, let's create a new server. Create server. Let's see what's happening. Okay, we get an error. Why is that? Okay, and yeah, this didn't work, and the reason is I made a mistake. Actually, we need to grab this and put it in here, yeah? So we don't want to have the unique file name. We only want to have the folders here and the subfolders, like this. And we need to provide a comma here, like so. Now let's delete it again and let's try it out. Create server, test 1, 2, 3. And it worked. And also a public folder with an images subfolder has been created, yeah? Beautiful. And now let's jump back to our front end. So, after being able to create servers, let's make sure that we can display them in our sidebar. You know what? First of all, let's create a nice reusable hook, yeah, for fetching our servers. That's what we do. So under source, let's create a new folder, hooks. Actually, we have this folder. And in this hooks folder, let's create a subdirectory and we name it GraphQL. And then maybe let's say new folder server, and in there let's create a use servers.ts. In here let's create a function, export const, or maybe export function, use server, parentheses, curly brackets. Let's access our profile using use profile store. And in here, let's say state arrow state.profile. Then let's say const curly brackets data, and let's give it an alias of servers. And let's also make use of this loading here. And then let's say use query from Apollo client. Let's use get servers. Oh, actually we didn't create this one, huh? So we need to create this query. So let's go to GraphQL queries, and in here let's create a file get servers.ts. Let's import GQL from Apollo client. Let's say export const get servers. And let's say GQL template string like this. In here let's say query get servers, and then profile ID, which is of type float, or which must be of type float. Then let's say, actually, how did we name it on our backend? Let's go to server service. No, actually server resolver. How did we name it? Get servers. Okay. So we can name it get servers here as well. Get servers. And then we pass in the profile ID and the actual value for the profile ID. And we want to return the ID, name, and image URL for each server. That's all we need. And everything has succeeded here, so we are good here, and we can import it here, get servers. Let's also properly type it, get servers, get servers. Oh, actually, there might be something wrong, because the types have been not created. Let's see if we have an error here. Alright, we have a bunch of errors here. Let's refresh. Okay, now error here. Why is that? Get servers. It has not created the types for us. Maybe let's rename this. Get servers. And of course, I made a mistake here. Yeah, I forgot a curly bracket. And now we should be able to type it. Yeah, get servers query, comma, get servers query variables like this. And let's provide some options. We pass in our variables, profile ID, and yeah, that's all we need here, the profile ID. Yeah, that's all we need. And now our hook must return something. Let's return servers, colon, and then we say servers, question mark, get servers, dot, and no, we are good. That's all we return. So this is an array of servers. So this must be servers. Yeah, this is an array of servers. And we also want to return loading. And now here we have an error because this can be number or undefined. And I just see, you know what? We actually do not need the profile ID here as variable. And I explain you why. So let's refactor our get servers. Let's get rid of this here. And of this as well. And now let's go back to our backend. And we can get rid of this profile ID here. And why is it? Because we can make use of our email here. Yeah. And the email is the email of the authenticated user. And for this user, we want to get all his servers, yeah, that this user is part of. So, yeah, we don't need the profile ID. And with that, let's go back to our front end. And we should be fine here. Okay, now in our use server hook here, let's also make sure we rename this here, use servers, yeah, because we get multiple servers. And here we have an error now. Why is that? Maybe I made something wrong here. It might be that we do not need these parentheses. Not really sure about it. Ah, yeah. So, for the case that we don't provide any arguments, we can get rid of these, or we must get rid of them, otherwise it will not work. And now we are good here. We can close our use servers hook, and we can go back to our sidebar here, and we can say const, curly brackets, servers, and then we say use servers, like this, yeah? And then parentheses, and oh my god, I made another mistake here. Use server, we need to rename this, use servers, like this. Okay. And actually, sorry for this, we don't need the profile here. Okay. And we can get rid of this import. Now let's go back to our sidebar. Let's import use servers. We can also get access to loading if we want. But for now, I think we don't use this loading state here. And yeah, now let's work on our sidebar. So let's create another component. Maybe here above. Function navbar link, which takes a couple of props, image URL, label, active, and onClick. And these are of type navbar link props. Let's write a little interface, navbar link props. We say label is of type string, active is optional and of type boolean, image URL is of type string, and onClick is optional and is of type arrow function, which returns nothing. All right. Now let's open up curly brackets here for our navbar link, and here we simply return some JSX. So what do we return here? We return a tooltip from Maintain Core with a label of label, a position of right, and yeah, that's it. And in here, let's have an unstyled button from Maintain Core. This button is a variant of transparent, and it has a style of border radius rem from maintain core 100. Let's give it an on-click handler, on-click, and let's pass in on-click, and let's say data active is equal to active or undefined, like this. Okay, cool. Then in our button, let's have an image component provided by maintain core. Let's give this image a source of image URL, a width of or W of rem of 50, as well as a height of rem of 50 and a radius of 100. And okay, actually we need to write it like this, width and height. And I need to make sure that I close this properly. Okay, great. Now we can head to our sidebar component again. And underneath our useServers hook, let's create a variable named links. Let's say servers.map. Let's access a server in here and an index. And then we return a navbar link for each server. And we pass in as key server ID. Actually, we don't need the index here. Then on click. Here we have an arrow function in here. And in the body of the arrow function, we say set active. And we set it to index. Set active to index. Actually, we need this index here. All right. And we say navigate template string, and we say /servers /$ curly brackets server ID like this. All right. Nice. Let's make sure that we close it properly. And now let's make sure that we create all these variables. Const active and set active. Initially we can set it to 0. And here navigate we need to create as well. Navigate lowercase n. Let's say const navigate is equal to use navigate provided by React router DOM, like this. And let's make sure that we pass in a label of server.name, and also let's pass in the image URL like this. Oops. Server.image URL like this. Nice. Now let's go underneath this icon here. So we have icon plus, and then we have this icon arrows join, and then underneath this closing center tag, let's simply have a flex component maybe, or maybe we have a stack. Oh, actually, yeah, we have a stack component here. And in here, let's say that we want to render our links. And there we go. Yeah. Let's give the stack also justify of center and a gap of MD. Gap MD. And you know what? Actually, this doesn't look nice. It should be perfectly round. I wonder why that is. So maybe this didn't work here. Let's try it out. W and H. Yeah, this fixed it. And here you see we don't see an image, and the reason is previously I had deleted images. Yeah, so let's get rid of this one here, because there's no image for this one anymore, because on the backend I deleted the public folder, and now it's great. And you see we have a nice tooltip here, because we made use of this tooltip component provided by Mantin, and it's looking really nice. Okay, now let's go to our stack component again. Where is it? Here. And let's say margin top of XL maybe. Yeah. And now maybe let's make sure that these two lower buttons are at the bottom. So I would say let's go to sidebar module.css, and here in our navbar class, let's say justify content space between. Then it looks like this, which is alright. But actually, what we need to do is we have these two center components here. Let's wrap them in a stack like this. Yeah, this looks better now. And actually, maybe let's grab this stack component here with the links and put it in this stack here as well, like this. Yeah. So I think now it makes sense. And I think we should be fine here. Yeah. And now one more thing, because I really like to have this beautiful. Let's go back to our sidebar module.css. And let's give this navbar class one more property. Let's say that we want to have a border right. And let's say rem 1 pixel. Let's make it solid. Let's use light dark again. In here, let's say we want to have var dash dash Mantin color gray 3, comma, and then also let's say var dash dash Mantin color dark 4, like this. And let's make sure to put a semicolon there. And now we have something like this. Yeah. And maybe let's make it a bit darker. Maybe dark 7. Oops, and also make sure to close it here. Yeah, this variable here. And what's wrong here? Let me see. Okay, this is too much here. Yeah. And now you see we have a nice border here, looking beautiful. And maybe on light we can do 4 or maybe 6. Yeah, maybe 5 or something like this. Alright, next I would say let's work on the server sidebar. And we get to this server sidebar when clicking on a specific server. And there we will be able to perform CRUD operations such as managing members of a server or adding channels updating channels or deleting servers and so on. A lot of things to do there. So yeah, let's get started with this now. Okay, now I would like to improve a few things in our create server model. And I notice that here are a few issues. So when trying to create a server without an image, we get this error message here, yeah? So it says we must provide a variable named file, and it cannot be null, yeah? It must be of type upload. All right, so let's fix this. So I would say, first of all, let's go to our backend. And here, what we need to do is, actually, I have done it here already. So make sure you go to your server resolver and then you make this file field nullable like this, yeah. Then let's go to our frontend again. And here we have to go to our create server mutation. And now here we need to get rid of this exclamation mark here, yeah? After upload, like this. Let's save it. And now this error should be gone. Let's try it again. All right. Now we get this error here. Image URL is missing. So what we have to do, let's go back to our backend again. Let's change this create server function a bit. Let's get rid of this. Let's get rid of this let image URL. Let's make this const. So const image URL, and then let's say if now file, then we want to return, or we want to throw a new Apollo error. Image is required, like this, yeah? All right. And now let's go back to our browser. Let's try it again. And now we get this error here, yeah? Image is required. Okay, and now we can display a little error message here, yeah, that is coming from our backend. In order to do so, let's go to our drop zone. Where is it? It's here, yeah. So below this, below these curly brackets, so below these closing brackets, let's create a text component with C of red. And in here we display error question mark message, yeah. And we have access to this error because here our use mutation hook returns an error object, yeah. All right, nice. Let's try it out. So what we need to do is give it a name, hit create server, and here we see our error message from the backend. All right. Now maybe let's make it that we do a line and now let's see what's happening when selecting an image. All right, the error message still stays. So what we want to do is, let's go to our error text again. And let's make sure that we only show it for the case that we have an error message and there's no file, yeah? Like so. and then again and. Okay, now the error is gone. Let's try it out again. Alright, and here it still worked, although we cleared the image, which is bad. And the reason for this is that here, when clicking this clear button, we only set the image preview to null. And this is not enough. We also need to set the file to null. Yeah, this is important. Now let's try it out again. And we see we get this error message. Nice. Or maybe what we can do is we can grab this error text and we can place it in here maybe. Let's try this out. And let's make this a stack component rather than a fragment. Yeah, maybe like this. It's up to your personal preference, yeah, how you do it. Okay, nice. And now here's one more issue. You see, this looks really bad. It should be a nice round circle. So let's go to our image here around line 150. And what we need to do here is we need to say width and height. Yeah, and this fixes the problem. Now you see this button here. It doesn't show the complete text, which looks ugly. So let's go to our button and maybe let's make it 40% or 50. Yeah, maybe 50%. Yeah. And now this issue is gone. All right, beautiful.